Hi, this afternoon I want to kind of finish up on the last segment when I was talking about my Fiestaware. There was one little thing I wanted to mention when I was showing my dishes, and it had to do with back during the war. The war, I'm talking about World War II. My sister's husband came home from the war in 1945, and he had his mustering out pay. All of the soldiers got a mustering out pay, and it was $50. He gave her the $50. She went downtown to the hardware store where my dishes probably came from, and she picked out her own Fiesta. She had a brochure. I wish I had it with me to show it to you. This brochure listed all of the Fiesta pieces that were available. And on that brochure, she checked off with pencil. She had a little check mark indicating every piece that she bought. One of the things I noticed on the list was the covered vegetable bowl that I showed you. It was in forest green. She bought that bowl, and she had written in pencil the price, $2.99. That bowl today is worth more than $250. So I just wanted to add that to the people who watch and who collect Fiestaware, and I really appreciate those who have hinted to others to send me number 6 mixing bowl in turquoise. Yes, I would love that. Be much appreciated. But today the story I want to tell you goes back to when I was 57 years old. I'm going to say I really didn't start to live until then. I did the normal thing that every other wife, mother, grandmother does. I had a budget. I didn't get many vacations, couldn't afford the better things in life, and I never got to travel. As a young girl, I always wondered what it would be like to go to New York City and see a Broadway show. Oh gosh, only the rich could do that. Not me. I knew I'd never get to do that. Or to fly in a plane. Where would I go? Who would I go with? No. There were so many things that I dreamed about. I was a dreamer, there's no question about it. I was also a movie buff. I went to the theater every week and saw a double feature. And they were such good movies in those days. They had the musicals. And I dreamed of being Ginger Rogers and Betty Grable and June Haver. But that was just a dream. But when I was 57 years old, I won a contest. You don't win a contest unless you enter. And this was a magazine contest. It was a decorating contest. And that's something I love to do. As you can see here, I've got my Easter table already set up. See my little circle, them test cups, my bunny rabbits. These are things I've had through the years, and I just went into the closet and pulled out boxes and found the things. And let me show you this little fellow. Isn't he cute? I've had him 50 years. He has a mate. His mate is over here in the water sprinkler. Can you see him? Just like Peter Rabbit, hiding in the little water sprinkler. This is one of my favorites right here. He's so cute. But anyway, I thought you'd like to see a few of the things I put on my Easter table. The table goes on down another half of the length of this. And this is my bowl of Easter eggs. Now, I thought these were just artificial eggs when I bought them, but when I got home, I discovered I had chocolate eggs. And it's been a temptation to keep my hands out of this bowl. But to go on with my story, I entered the contest for decorating, and I won. And of course, you want to know, what did you win? I won. I'm going to scoot over the shadows over my face. I won a round trip for two, 10 days on the Queen Elizabeth II luxury liner to England. What more could you ask? I was on cloud 9. But there was just one problem. I had motion sickness. I'd never been able to even ride the merry-go-round at the carnival without getting sick. I couldn't go riding with my girlfriends in a car because every time we went around a curve, I would get sick. Anything with motion, and I thought, how in the world am I going to cross the Atlantic Ocean for 5 days going, 5 days coming, and not get sick? Well, I conquered that after I got on the ship. Just happened to be a young man. He and his wife were coming back to England from New York. They were both detectives. And when I explained the motion sicknesses, I was wearing the bracelets, I had the patch, I had the Dramamine. I did everything I could think so that I would enjoy this cruise. And he said, go to the infirmary after dinner and tell them you want a certain shot. I did. They gave me the shot. And I'm telling you, it was like a new life for me. I was able to stand on the deck of that ship. Now, that ship wasn't like a boat, the kind of boat I had in mind. That ship was as long as a football field. By the time you walked from one end of it to the other through the corridor, you had blisters on the bottom of your feet. But the story I'm telling you was not of my first trip to England. It was later. I had met a lady on the first trip with her husband, and we became very good friends. She was from Ohio, and we kept in contact. He died, and she continued to travel. He had taught her the beauty of seeing the world, and they could afford it. So she and I became mates, and we traveled together. This was a trip we took in August. We stayed in London at one of the Hilton hotels, and while we were there, we got to tour the palace, which could only be toured 3 weeks in August every year because the Queen, it was at Holyrood in Scotland. And that was a thrill. I can't describe that. So she was anxious to go to Cambridge. We'd both been to Cambridge before, but she wanted to go back. It was an hour's ride on the train from London to Cambridge. And you enjoyed every minute of it because the scenery is so beautiful there that you don't want to miss anything. So her idea was she wanted to see the mathematical bridge. She did not get to see it her first time. I had seen it. And I told her, I said, I know where it is, I just don't know how to get there. We got off the train. We walked about a half a mile into Cambridge. Now, first of all, This was the week in London that was the hottest week on record. It was 103 degrees that day. And I chose to wear a pair of ballerina shoes that didn't have enough leather under the foot to keep the heat from the sidewalk from penetrating into my feet. It was bad. We got into Cambridge and we walked and we walked and we looked. And we got so thirsty. Well, we found a little garden site where they were selling various things, and we managed to get a cup of water. I'm not a water drinker, never have been, don't like water. But that day, I guzzled it down like it was the best thing I'd ever had in my life. And we stayed very thirsty. We walked, looking for the mathematical bridge. And what I had noticed was the streets are fascinating with their name. The little side street, one of them said up the street, the next one said down the street. A friend had taken us to a pub way out in the country, and the name of that pub was 5 miles from anywhere. That's what you would find in England. So we found an information center and we picked up every brochure that we could get our hands on, still looking for where do you go to get to the mathematical bridge. We're walking down the street and we come to a little church, and it's right up next to the sidewalk, and there's a sign in front that says bazaar today. Well, let's go see what they sell in their bazaars. We know what we can find at home in yard sales and bazaars that the churches have. Let's see what they have in England. We got to the door. There were small tables, like card tables, one on each side of the door. And they had little trinkets, little things that ladies had crocheted, little plaques that, you know, the kind that say mother and have a little verse on them, things like that. We went inside. There were 2 more tables filled with memorabilia. And we looked, and there was a long aisle, I mean long, to the front of the church. When I say the front, I mean up where the pulpit is, up where the minister preaches, and where the choir sings. This was a beautiful church. The ceilings were very, very high, and the stained glass windows were beautiful. All of the churches in England have beautiful stained glass windows, excuse me. So we get up to the front. You had to walk up 2 or 3 steps, and it was a long pulpit across, and on the left end were a couple of tables with tablecloths. And beside them was another long table, and on that table were refreshments. There was a little old man there. He was doing the serving, and we were so thirsty already. She asked for a cup of coffee, and I took the lemonade. Now, something that you probably already know is that in England, they don't put ice in their drinks. I don't drink lemonade, I don't drink water, I don't drink tea unless it has ice in it. You have to ask for ice if you want that. But that day, I was willing to drink the lemonade any way they had it because it was so hot. There stood Sandy and me in our colorful capri pants and our tank tops. She started up a conversation with the man and was asking about the treat, the cookies and the cakes and the different ways they cook in England compared to the United States. So we both asked for a piece of cake. I took the lemonade, she took her coffee, And he said, you can sit at these two tables. So we picked the front table facing the, well, not the auditorium, but the congregation. It was a pretty large church inside. So we sat down at that table and we took a drink, and I had my cake in front of me. I picked up a bite of the cake like this. I had my fork about here when I heard dun 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 dun. What in the world was that? I looked straight out in front of me, and there was this huge organ. You know the kind I'm talking about. It had pipes that went all the way to the ceiling. And a young man in a black robe was at the keyboard playing. What have we got ourselves into? The little man that had waited on us was sitting in a chair down below the organ. And there we sat, fork in hand, our drink beside us, and we looked straight ahead, and the church was filled with people. We were on display looking out at a congregation of church members. Why we didn't see them coming into the church, I don't know. We were so involved with getting something to eat, something to drink, hearing the story that the little man was telling us. We didn't notice the people coming in. So there we were at a table with cake, lemonade, and coffee. What do you do? Do you eat that bite of cake, or do you put it back down on the plate? Well, I put it back down on the plate. And I leaned to my friend and said, how do we get out of here? She said, we don't, unless you want to walk down that long aisle. No, that wasn't going to happen. I said, there's a room over to the right. The door's open. Maybe we can sneak into that room and there'll be an outside door. She said, no, there is no outside door. I've already looked. There we were. The members began singing. They were all standing. Well, what were we going to do? The little man sitting in the chair stood up, handed us a songbook, and pointed to the page. It was a song we didn't know, but we mouthed the words, and we stood too in our capri pants and our tank tops. You talk about miserable. We were stuck. We didn't know what to do. I assumed the organist was also the young minister of the church. So when they finished the song, he stepped down. He had to step 2 or 3 steps down from that big organ to get over to the center of the pulpit. And there stood 2 young men. They were all 3 in black robes. He started talking, and I had a problem hearing him because he was catty-cornered, his back to me, and I already had a hearing problem, so I couldn't understand what he said, especially with his British accent. He said a few words, and then when he got through, he danced back over to the organ, climbed up, and they started another song. We stood again with the congregation. And the little man gave us the book again and pointed to the song. So there we were again, singing with the congregation. That song finished. They had 3 songs before we finished. The 2 young men spoke, and then they started a recitation from pages. The entire room had a group of pages that had been stapled together. The ministers read his, then they read theirs. Back and forth, back and forth. Page 1, page 2, page 3. And I whispered to Sandy, when is this going to be over? I don't know how long I can sit here with people staring at us. We sat, and we didn't touch our drinks, we didn't touch our cake until the program was over. It lasted about 30 minutes. And when it was finished, our new friend came to us and thanked us for being there. And it was a Saturday, I think, and we wondered, why are they having a church service on Saturday afternoon? And he said, this is the church's 100th anniversary. We were there. We were on display, embarrassed to tears, but we got to take part in the Methodist Church 100th anniversary. Well, we whizzed out of that church, still looking for Mathematical Bridge. Okay, we get down the street and we come to Queens College. Now, Queens College has a brick wall about 10 feet high, all the way around. And what we learned then, there was a gate going inside. And on the other side was the Mathematical Bridge. We went through this. It was a door, a big, thick wooden door. And there was a young lady there selling tickets. So we bought a ticket, and she told us how to get to the Mathematical Bridge. We went through a building, went through a hallway, and when we got to the end of that hall, we were standing on the Mathematical Bridge. Well, that was quite a surprise. We crossed the bridge, and on the other side was beautiful lawn, lots of shade trees, and park benches. We sat down on one of the park benches, and we watched as the punt boats went up and down the Cam River. Now, the Cam River at that point is only 2 or 3 feet deep, and it sides up to the back of Queen College. We sat there, I guess, 2 hours watching the young men on the punt boats. You know, they had those great big sticks, and they pushed the boat through the water. You've seen it in the movies. And the people on the boats are so happy. You hear them laughing. They had their picnic lunches with them. They had their wine and glasses, and they are sharing in their drinks and enjoying the day so much. So we sat there a while, and finally I started to get sleepy, and I said, we need to go. For one thing, we had to be back at the train station in time to get the last train back to London, because the last train left at 8 p.m. And this was about 6:15. So we went back through that little hallway. We were on the grounds of Queens College, and we go back to the door where we came in, and it was locked. When I say locked, I'm talking about a huge chain and bolt like you would see in a Robin Hood movie. That door was locked and we couldn't get out. We had a 10-foot wall around us. What were we going to do? We looked at the sign on the wall and it said, closed 6 p.m. It was 6:15. What do? We walked around, we looked. We didn't know what to do. So we went back through the hall, back across the mathematical bridge, and on the other side of the bridge was a tall wrought iron fence, one that you couldn't possibly climb over. But there was a gate that you could get through that fence. Well, okay. You know, earlier I noticed a Volkswagen parked behind a long, narrow building. This long, narrow building faced the street where I once stood on the bridge and watched the people on the Cam River going up and down. But we didn't know what the building was for because we were on the back side. Wonder if we could get through the building. That's the only way we could get to the street because we were locked in Queen College. Okay, the very end section had a door with a glass window in the top. You could see. And I walked up to that door and I could see through a room. There was a door on the other side with glass in the top. And I knew that door was on the street side. So I said to Sandy, maybe this door is open. If we can just get through that room and out that other door, we're safe. Oh, no, I'm not going to take a chance on that. We couldn't tell if it was someone's home or if it was an office. It was decorated with furniture. And I said, well, I'm going to take a chance. I turned the knob to that door and it opened. And I motioned to her, come on. She was right behind me. We didn't know what we were going to do if we got that other door and it was locked. But we got to that other door and it was unlocked. We went through that door like a snake going through a field. We were on the street again. What we didn't take note of as we came into Cambridge was the streets we were on. We didn't look at the street signs. So we didn't know which direction to go to get back to the train station. And Sandy would say, well, I don't remember seeing that building over there when we came in. I said, oh yeah, that's where they were having a wedding and the people were coming out of the church. Don't you remember? Oh, okay. That means we're going the right direction. And then we came to England has beautiful flowers everywhere. We came to these beautiful bushes and she says, I don't remember seeing those flowers. I said, I remember those flowers. We're going the right way. Finally, we came to a tree, very bushy, and she walked past that tree, and behind it was a big sign with an arrow that long pointing, train station. Off we went. We got there just in time to catch the train, 8 o'clock train to London. But there was a big sign that said, train delayed. Well, what are we going to do? So one of the servicemen was standing there. We said, why is the train delayed? How are we going to get to London? He said, oh, somebody decided they wanted to jump the tracks and they're still cleaning up the mess. Then he said, this train right here is leaving right now, and we could see it starting to move. He said, it'll take you into King Cross Station. We jumped on that train and off we went. Now, of course, we had directions from the other train how we were going to get back to our hotel, but we didn't have any direction on this train. What would we do? Funny thing was, there was a young man and two ladies on the car with us. There wasn't anybody else. Very quiet. It was dark. And the young man gave us specific instructions on how to get from Cross Station to our hotel. And we got into London and we were safe and sound back to the hotel. Now that's one little story, and I have many more. I've been to London 6 times. When I say I didn't start to live until I was 57 years old, winning a contest was the beginning of life for me. My friend and I have been several places. After we sailed 3 times on the Queen Elizabeth II, and I'm telling you, it's the joy of a lifetime. We then sailed on the new Queen Mary II. I stood in the middle of the corridor in front of our cabin, and I looked to the other end of the corridor, and I couldn't even see it. That's how long the corridor was. We met people on the ships. We met people in London. I met Robert Stack and his wife. This was on the Queen Elizabeth II. We were enjoying life. And I have decided that if you want to be happy, travel. See all you can see. Meet people. Don't be backwards. And when we get through this, I don't know what to call this episode of our lives that we're having to go through. When we get beyond that and can go back to living normal life, walking out the door and breathing fresh air, remember these days in the last 2 years, what it's been like. Wake up, get out there and see the world. Now, I hope you've enjoyed this story. And if you haven't, we'll try another one next time. Maybe I can come up with something funny. We'll see. I'm going to use my clicker.